888-72323.
LA filing number 16-7970.
WNXX Jackson, KNXX Donaldsonville, and WDGL HD2 Baton Rouge. This hour brought to you by Spencer Callahan Injury Lawyers. LA 21-12681. Offices in Baton Rouge. Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Wednesday. About half the work week in the rearview mirror. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Got Jacob back and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos, and a lot to do over the next couple of hours as per usual. JD Piquel, host of the Hard Count on 3, is going to be with us in 15 minutes breaking down the college football playoff, which cranks up tomorrow. It's a What If Wednesday for the first time. Well, we haven't been here on a Wednesday in 3 weeks, so it's been a minute since we did a What If Wednesday. We'll get into some of those. Matthew Bruni is going to be with us 1 hour from right now to talk some basketball. You can imagine how that conversation is going to go. Saints candidates continue to emerge. Got an NFL mock draft that includes Will Campbell, and Saints coaching search continues to cycle through names that reportedly will get an interview. So lots and lots to do. Thanks for locking us in. We start the same way we do each and every day, and that's with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
Well, if you were going to ask the SEC schedule makers to get you started, and you had to play one at home, and you had to play one on the road, I would suggest that playing Vanderbilt on your home floor on a Saturday afternoon, and then traveling to Missouri for a late tip on a Tuesday in an ice storm is about as good as you could draw. And LSU sits here at 0-2, and they have not been real competitive late in either of these basketball games, and that is a massive concern. LSU goes to Columbia last night and loses 83-67. That looks like a sizable margin, 16 points. It was worse than that. It was 19 at 2 different times. No, check that, 3 different times in the first half, and LSU never truly threatened in the second half. They got it down to 13, had a possession to cut it to 10. Is cutting it to 10, making it a competitive ball game? I would consider no. Last night, when I watched that basketball game, I don't believe LSU was competitive at all. And it really started right out of the gate because LSU comes out, and you just have to look at the way the possessions materialize when LSU's got the ball versus when Missouri's got the ball. LSU once again turned the basketball over 4 times in their first 7 possessions. LSU once again could not get down the floor and get a shot in the air in the first half. Against Vanderbilt, they turned it over 11 times in the first half. In this game against Missouri, they turned it over 10 times in the first half. Every dribble was contested by Missouri. Every pass seemed contested by Missouri. You had LSU guys getting up under the goal and having nowhere to throw the basketball. You had LSU throwing the ball out of bounds. You had LSU bouncing the ball off their foot. It was just a comedy of errors that were aided by the fact that Missouri laced up their tennis shoes, their basketball shoes, their sneakers, whatever you want to call it, and guarded LSU, and LSU had no answer for it. And then you go to the other side of the floor. And Missouri got where they wanted to get. What did we say yesterday? The identity of Missouri basketball. They make more free throws than anybody in the country. So what did they do in the first half? Well, they hammered away at LSU. They drew 12 personal fouls, including 3 on Jordan Sears and 3 on Victorious Miller, 2 on Corey Chest, and they got to the free throw line for 13 attempts in the first half. That almost doubled up LSU. So for the second game in a row, you let a team go right to its playbook. Vanderbilt turns teams over a ton. LSU obliged by just turning it over left and right. Missouri gets to the foul line. I said the key was going to be LSU's perimeter defense and keeping Missouri away from the rim. Couldn't do it. foul, 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 foul. And you compounded the poor play with foolish play. Matt McMahon left Jordan Sears in the ballgame, his fifth-year senior point guard, with 2 personal fouls. And that's a reasonable thing to do when you're trailing by as many as LSU was. They got down 19 points. You need your guys out there that have been scoring for you all year. But Jordan Sears has to know, with 2 fouls late in the first half, you can't reach in on a dig and slap the Missouri guy on the arm and pick up your 3rd foul on a cheap one. Victorious Miller got a 3rd foul, but at least he was driving to the rim and finished the play. They called him for his shoulder. Okay, it's a freshman trying to make a play. You're down a ton of points. You can't make a foolish play on top of all the bad play. And LSU had plenty of that. Now, for the second game in a row, LSU kind of cleaned things up in the second half from a turnover perspective. LSU only turned the ball over in the second half 4 times, but the damage was done. You were already out of the game. And Sears made another foolish play in the second half when he just hauled off and shoved his counterpart Anthony Robinson, for his 4th foul. But there's just a lot more at play here than, well, LSU's 0-2 in league play. Well, they turned the ball over in the first half. Well, they got beat. When you look at the 2 games that LSU has played against bottom-level teams in this league, and that's what they are. Missouri got hammered by Auburn in the game that they didn't play LSU, and Vanderbilt got hammered by Mississippi State on their home floor last night. These are bottom half of the SEC, bottom tier of the SEC teams, and LSU has been hammered in both of those games. Now, we already knew that if Cam Carter and Jordan Sears didn't shoulder a heavy scoring load, that LSU was going to be in trouble. And last night, Jordan Sears had his worst game as a Tiger because of foul trouble and probably a coach's decision in the second half. He only played 11 minutes. He went 1 of 3 from the floor, had 4 fouls, 2 turnovers, and no assists. That's a no-show. And Cam Carter didn't really have it. He was 5 of 15. He made all 5 of his free throws, but he was 1 of 5 from deep. He turned the ball over 3 times. He had 16 points, but it was an ugly 16 points. And those 2 guys didn't show up. And Victorious Miller, who was kind of your other backcourt scoring option in the non-conference against those terrible teams, has been overmatched in the first 2 games. And that's okay. That's not his fault. But this LSU team, from a talent perspective and from an execution perspective through 2 games, is not even close to the rest of this basketball league. Not even close. Now, I know that most LSU fans, most at this point, are either completely apathetic or have turned the page on this basketball team and potentially basketball program after 2 games. That's the way this sport works around here, and I know that, and that's fine. I'm not going to completely stop talking about him, and y'all know this since the first day I sat in this chair on this microphone. I am never, while I catch checks from LSU in the fall for doing the pre- and post-game for football, going to sit here and call for any coach on campus to get fired. Not going to happen on this show. It's never going to happen. I'm going to analyze the situation, and I just told you that LSU is not even close right now to the rest of this league. And I believe that. But here's what I'm going to tell you. I think LSU is in for a very, 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 very long 16 more games. If I had to suggest how many I thought that LSU would win over the next 16 games, I would tell you somewhere in the neighborhood of 2. That's what I think. And if that happens, it will be massively disappointing. However, I sat here at Christmas of last year after I'd watched LSU get trucked by Kansas State and trucked by Syracuse and trucked by Texas with no point guard play. And I said, look at this league. LSU's got no chance. I don't think they're going to win 3 games. And LSU won 9. Matt McMahon found a way. He got his team playing better basketball, and they figured it out. I'm telling you right now, I don't think that's going to happen. But I'm willing to watch. Right now, they are not even close. I think they're low on talent. I think the loss of Jalen Reed has been crippling to a front court that has no scoring ability. I was counting on Tyrell Ward to come in and shoot 40% from the three-point line and add some length. I was counting on Mike Williams to take a step up in his sophomore season after a nice freshman year where he shot nearly 40% from three in SEC play, and he took care of the basketball pretty well, and I thought, well, that's another guy that can run the point. He didn't get off the bench last night until two of their guards had 3 fouls. So I don't know what happened there. There are a lot of things that have transpired over the course of the last 2 months that have led LSU to where they are right now. And where they are right now is not competitive. So you either figure something out and play way better than you did, or you're going to get trucked in this league. This is still a team that handled Florida State in Baton Rouge. Florida State's not great. It's still a team that went to Kansas State, although they had Jalen Reed that night, and controlled that game. Kansas State's not great, but it's a Power 5 team. Still a team that beat Central Florida. Again, the Jalen Reed loss is big, and I'm not making excuses. I've already told you I think they're going to go 2-16. That's what I think they're going to do. But I'm going to sit here and watch before I throw the entire program in the dumpster. I'll evaluate it when it's all over. And I realize that sounds like Joe Oliva in 2015. That's not exactly a great memory. And I'm completely frustrated and honestly massively disappointed at what I've watched the last 2 games. But I did sit here and tell you all of December, this is going to be bumpy. And I told you all December, I think they're one of the 4 or 5 lowest talent level teams in the SEC. They're going to have to figure something out in a hurry, or this is going to go completely off the rails. I'm already writing off Auburn and Tennessee and really Florida. Mississippi State's gaining on that. There are some other teams in this league that you should be able to play with. You haven't through 2 games, but that's going to happen to everybody. Tennessee went on the road last night and no-showed. I'm going to assess 18 games instead of 2. But I'll tell you right now, after 2, not good. Really not good. Beck, you watched a little bit of that game last night. Those are my thoughts. You got anything to add to that?
Man, it's just like you mentioned about last year about before the SEC started, and you know all those bad losses they had in non-conference, and it was almost the inverse this year where their non-conference was actually good. So you go in and you think maybe they can start well, and they've done the opposite of last year. Last year they won the first 3 of 4. They won the road and beat A&M, and they beat Vanderbilt, lost to Auburn, and then beat Ole Miss at home. So it's not, it doesn't, the outlook is bleak. There's no question about it. But it just doesn't feel like they have the depth that they had last year, which is interesting to say, because last year Jordan Wright was their main scoring guard, and they had some other guys like Mike Williams come in and maybe supplant that a little bit. But you thought going into the SEC that you've got 2 guys that should be able to score in the SEC with Sears and Carter, and they've just had off nights, and it hasn't looked good. And so, like we said, if they cannot score, you have a serious problem. And then you compound that with losing Tyrell Ward, you losing Jalen Reed, and that is not a recipe for success. And I worry, and I don't think that it's going to be. I don't feel as down. For some reason, I don't feel like 2 wins. I can't see this team not winning at least 3 or 4, which is not saying, obviously not saying much. It's saying very little. But I think this team will get better.
There may have been a cruel trick that got played on us here, and here's the deal: they scheduled Kansas State, who, when we think of Kansas State, you think of the Elite 8 team from 2 years ago. They were in the NIT last year. And Kansas State, went on the road last night and got smashed by Oklahoma State, and they're a 7-7 team. And then you had Florida State come in, and you look at, there's that's a famous coach right there. That's a team that's had a great run with Leonard Hamilton over the last 15 years. And it's a 10-4 team that's not great. And then all of a sudden, I thought Pitt was pretty damn good. Pitt played Mississippi State and lost by almost 40. And they went to Cameron last night and got wiped off the floor, which is going to happen. But, they may not be great. And then Central Florida's. And so maybe you planted the perfect 3 or 4 non-conference games to make us go, that's probably a good team. We don't really know because everybody's got all transfers this year. So, you can't really assess college basketball in September. You don't know who anybody has because everybody just got all transfers. But it looks like, this looks pretty good. And you don't know. How much of it is the competition? How much of it is Jalen Reed? I don't know. I'm willing to give Matt McMahon a chance to coach his way out of this.
Yeah.
I'm looking at SEC teams every night, and I'm looking at LSU, and I'm going, these don't look the same.
And now thinking about it, like we had Drew King on for that covers Missouri, and we asked him what happened last year to Missouri, and he mentioned some injuries. He mentioned some transfers not panning out. This almost seems like we're headed down that road potentially for LSU with some transfers that aren't seemingly going to maybe pan out as much as we were hoping for, and some injuries.
And the bummer of the whole thing, and I'm not going to do this every game. I'm not going to do this every game.
No.
But the bummer of the whole thing is you can't even look at young players and go, well, he might pan out. Well, he might, because there's no guarantee that they play 2 or 3 years. In fact, the guarantee is almost that they won't play 3 years.
Yeah, it's like
at your school.
How could you ever after finishing the season last year? How could you? I mean, you would have thought almost for certain that a guy like Tyrell Ward and a guy like Mike Williams, who had good freshman seasons last year, they came back. They didn't leave. So you're like, okay, they're coming back. These guys are going to be contributors. No.
And then you lose Jalen Reed. I mean, and it's I'm watching Curtis Givens last night be assertive. He knocked down 2 second-half threes. He had a really nice drive and finish on a reverse in the first half, and I'm going, man, like that, he's grown up a little bit. He looks way different than he did in November. And then I'm looking there going, Curtis Givens might play for Utah next year. Like, how am I supposed to know? Maybe he plays for maybe he loves it at LSU. Maybe he's Imwani Wilkinson, who just never left LSU despite coaching changes and bad seasons and probations and all kinds of stuff that was thrown at. And he just wanted, and I don't know anything about Curtis Givens, but I can't sit there and say that he's a building block for the program. He's just on this team. So it's just a bummer. I love LSU basketball. I love watching them play basketball. And the last 72 hours have just been a disaster. And that's 2 of the 16 games that I could have told you for certain that 2 of the 16 games were going to be a disaster. Like, that was beyond question. It just didn't need to be the first 2. And here you are. So they have to win one of the next 2. They're at Ole Miss on Saturday. I don't see them winning there, obviously. And they're home against Arkansas, who I think's got a little bit of talent. I don't think Cal can coach at all. But they've got some dudes. So we'll see. But it's not a good start. So that's where we are. That's our Genesis opening drive here on this Wednesday. We'll talk to J.D. Piquel coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com. You're looking for group employee benefits for your business. That's a big, big deal. It's a big, big deal in recruiting talent to come work for you. It's a big, big deal in maintaining the talent that you have. You want to make sure that your employees are taken care of from a benefits and health insurance perspective, and the Highland Insurance Group is happy to help you do that. I know I worked in insurance and my wife's in healthcare, and we can both look at a healthcare plan and have trouble deciphering exactly what it looks like. It's just a complicated thing. If you would rather just run your business and have someone that you trust handle those benefits, handle that health insurance for your employees, call the Highland Insurance Group. They're happy to do that for you. They've got a phenomenal team over there. They're right here in Baton Rouge. If you're anywhere in the state of Louisiana, they are absolutely happy to help you. Call Jonathan Carver and his team. They're great. I'm looking forward to my conversations with them next week. I'm headed over to Highland Insurance Group to chat with them for the first time in a little bit, and looking very much forward to that. They're great people, and they do great, great work here in Baton Rouge. So in the new year, if you're looking at health insurance benefits for your company and would like a fresh set of eyes, the Highland Insurance Group is happy to help you with that. Check them out online at HighlandIG.com, HighlandIG.com.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
When you can't rely on technology, you can rely on Mountain Cold Refreshment.
Dave's back on.
Coors Light. Choose chill.
Got chores that need some extra muscle, but a large piece of equipment is overkill? That's what John Deere compact utility tractors were made for. Powerful enough for the work you need to do. Compact enough for how you need to do it. Find the equipment that's right for you at Sunshine Quality Solutions. Check out our current promotions and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Every Wednesday, we chat with our guy, JD Piquel, host of The Hard Count on the On3 YouTube channel. Subscribe up to that YouTube channel. Get all your college football all year round. This is the best time of year for college football for those that are still standing. Just 4 of them, and we're certainly going to talk about it with our guy. JD, Happy New Year. How are you?
Doing phenomenal, man. It's wild. We only got 3 games left here. Like we are staring down the barrel here of the end of the longest college football season in history. But juiced up, man, as I know you are as well. So appreciate you having me back on here.
What's the best thing been so far about the college football playoff?
The best thing so far? That's a really good question. To me, I think that it was pretty special for, I think, the casual fan who only tunes into the postseason of college football, only the big games of college football. A lot of those viewers would have typically only seen, the controlled environments in the indoor stadiums and, kind of the more corporate setting. This is kind of probably a popular answer, but I think for everyone getting to have the maximum exposure to an on-campus college football game and seeing what that looks like in a playoff setting, I think that was super cool. That was just a fun thing to kind of show to the rest of the sports world and the NFL crowd and the March Madness crowd and folks who wouldn't usually be as dialed into college football, to actually show them hey, this is what the sport is on a maximum exposure level. That was pretty cool.
I'm completely with you. I am not at all turned off by the fact that Clemson couldn't compete with Texas and Tennessee got smoked in Columbus. That doesn't bother me at all, because I don't think that's going to happen every year. It will happen some. It happens in the NFL playoffs sometimes. But I think that is to me been the best part of this whole thing. Obviously, the Peach Bowl was a ton of fun, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But I'm with you on the fact that these settings in December under the lights with brands that don't necessarily meet up all that often in those environments, just thinking about what Tuscaloosa or Tiger Stadium or the Big House or even the Coliseum or wherever would look like in that setting, I think is really cool for the future of the sport. I just don't care right now that this one year produced some blowouts. They may happen, but they happen in the 14 playoff too.
Yeah, I think the thing that's encouraging to me too is wherever we're at right now, because I was that guy where I was like, okay, I'm cool with the logic we decided here when it comes to these teams. I get it. Would I have preferred seeing South Carolina in here? 100%. Do I think hypothetically, which is, such a buzzword right now, and you get absolutely hammered if you used it in the sports media sense, but do I think hypothetically South Carolina could have given a better game to Penn State than SMU? Yeah, probably. But again, I'm cool with the teams that they chose because I think the logic was sound. But to the point I was making, we're not even at the final resting place for this thing. We're about to shake the snow globe here, and in 2 years have, I don't know if it'll be drastically different format, but it'll be a different format. I would expect the Big Ten and the SEC to probably throw their weight around and get some more auto bids. I would expect us to have some more teams. So even if you are in the camp of hey, I'm not crazy about how this looks right now, we're in a version, what is this? I guess 2.0 of college football play if you count the 14. But there's still a long way to go here before we have this machine where we want it to go.
What happened with Oregon?
Yeah, how much time do you have, Hunt? we got an hour to kill here.
We don't.
I think there's two big things. The first is Ohio State is a buzzsaw, and I think we can look at Michigan and say that was the heartbreak arc for them. They were embarrassed. It was, the catastrophe of all catastrophes, and they played with a different edge, different purpose, which is cliche, hard to quantify, but I think that's real. The other big thing, and nobody wants to point to this because it sounds like an excuse, because it kind of is, I think that the marriage between how well Ohio State is playing and how hot they are and how talented they are playing to their ceiling, paired with Oregon having 24 days, 23 days, whatever it was, off, and then having to jump in cold and play Ohio State. I'm not saying they still shouldn't have played better. I'm not saying that excuses anything. But I do wonder a little bit how much Oregon having to ramp it up against the team that was a buzzsaw in Ohio State, how much that impacted them. So there's a lot of other things you could point to. I think that the secondary bully Oregon's wide receivers. I think Jeremiah Smith being prioritized, always prioritized, we've all seen is just the game changer of all game changers. But those two things to me, Ohio State being able to get their revenge and Oregon's time off, having to ramp back up against that team, I think those are the two things that I point to.
Let's move to the semis, starting up tomorrow in the Orange Bowl down on South Beach. Penn State and Notre Dame. Can Notre Dame win this game with Riley Leonard throwing for 110 yards?
The compliment on our show is it's kind of like my 2-month-old and her swaddle. I go to bed, wrap her up tight, put her in the bassinet, and she's going to find a way out of that thing come morning time. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know what it's going to look like. It may not be the prettiest. There's going to be some grunting involved. There might be some spit up involved, but by 7 a.m. the next morning, she will have found her arms outside of that swaddle. I think that's Riley Leonard, man. I think that's the Notre Dame team. I did a segment today on the top 10 players in the game. Hunt, for me, 7 of those guys were on Penn State, and I'm still picking Notre Dame. So I think they find a way. I think the stat line's ugly. I have 26-21 for the Irish in Miami.
Would this Notre Dame team have been able to stand up with I don't need to toss them into the 19 Burrow LSU team, but of that era, you had the Trevor Lawrence Clemson teams, you had the Tua and Mac Jones Alabama teams, you had those Ohio State teams that were setting passing records. Could they have stood up to those teams with this style of play? Is their defense that good, or is this just a sense that the college football has kind of regressed in terms of the firepower, maybe outside of Ohio State?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I think the 2019 LSU is just tough to comp with anybody just because of how ridiculous they are, and we see what the NFL, translation has been there. But I really do think that Notre Dame, especially on the back end, they didn't have their best corner in Ben Morrison playing. I think they really are that good. Now, would I like them in a game against Ohio State in a couple of days here if they were to beat Penn State? I don't know if I feel that confident, but legitimately, they play so well complementary. And their secondary has been phenomenal, and then they've done a great job being aggressive. So I don't know if it's something that I would point to a future college football head coach and say, hey, this is how you dial up. You should be this aggressive defensively. But if it works for them and they have the personnel to play that much man on the back end, do it at a high level, more power to you. So some of it's matchups probably for them with who they've had to play so far. I don't think they've played anybody that's been able to take advantage of how much man coverage and pressure they bring. I don't think Penn State will be able to do that either. But to answer your question, I just think Notre Dame's that good on the back end.
What's your confidence level in Drew Allar against that back end?
To me, watching him at the end of the first half against Boise State, and Boise State's Boise State, I don't want to blow out of proportion how much we should take from that game. But he threw a couple of seeds, dude.
Yeah.
Like, he had one to Harrison Wallace that got dropped. He had one to Tyler Ward he didn't come down with. And I left that snapshot being like, hey, this dude actually was never the problem. Like, does he have his fair share of blame? Sure. But I think he's good enough to allow Notre Dame, or Penn State rather, to find a way to score against Notre Dame. The thing that I'm curious about is, like, I don't have any confidence in anyone not named Tyler Warren with a sweet bucket of lettuce wearing number 44 to separate. So he's good enough. His receivers are not.
All right, let's transition over to Texas and Ohio State. If you're the Texas defensive staff, where do you start?
Have you ever seen Endgame, Hunt? I'm not a big Marvel guy, but I know that was. You ever see that? With,
I'm not.
Thanos
Everyone knows I've never seen
deal?
any movies, and certainly no comic movies.
Okay. Well, that's no big deal. There's a scene that I'll walk it out for you where, essentially, Thanos, the villain in this story, is talking to, I guess it's his daughter. Bottom line, she asked him the question, "Hey, did you?" I'm even forgetting how it goes. Basically, the question I'm asking here this is a horrible segment. I'm just wandering through here, Hunt. For Texas, can you stop Jeremiah Smith? Is the question we're asking. You say, yeah. What did it cost you? Everything. Like, if you hold Jeremiah Smith to 67 yards, going back to the wonky Marvel quote I just walked through there, if you hold him to 67 yards, who else is gashing you? Because I don't think you're doing it with one man. I love Jahdae Barron, Jim Thorpe Award winner for Texas. But, like, you're not taking away Jeremiah Smith with one dude. Are you doing it with two? Are you doing it with shifting your whole defense towards him? Like, any way you slice this, if you're going to hold Jeremiah Smith to a pedestrian day, you're giving up something. And I think that is too lethal with this Ohio State offense and how many weapons they have and the level that Will Howard's playing at right now. So you have to try and cut it off at the root of the problem and get to Will Howard, to be my guess. Like, can you apply pressure and be exotic enough to throw him off his base? We've seen him struggle at times with pressure. But, I mean, short of that, it's never really been about Ohio State's ceiling to us, Hunt. I think it's been all about their floor, and we've seen their floor with what it was against Michigan. I don't think they're returning there, and I don't trust Texas to score with them. So that's a really roundabout, really awkward way to tell you Jeremiah Smith is going to make a difference, whether he gets the ball or not.
You like Ohio State minus the 5.5?
Give it to me. It sounds disrespectful, but I'll take minus 5.5. I'll take it up to 6.5. We're being honest here.
I think that the whole public's on that, which gives me a weird feeling, but I get why. They've been unbelievable the last two ball games. So enjoy the football. We'll talk about it. Talk about a final next week.
Yeah, I'll go rewatch that movie for us, and we'll circle back on these quotes. Appreciate you, Hunt. Go Tigers.
Thanks, J.D. McKellis, the Hard Count on the On3 YouTube channel. Subscribe up and get him here every single Wednesday. I'm excited to watch the games. Do I feel like Ohio State's the prohibitive favorite? Yeah. Do I think there are some teams that have some talent that may be able to run with them? Maybe. We'll just have to see. Looking forward to checking it all out. It's What If Wednesday coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com. Every Genesis that's on the lot is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. I was actually playing around on genesisofbatonrouge.com yesterday, just kind of looking at the new makes and the new models, and they're all out for the 2025 year. Go check them out. They're so sleek looking, so stylish. And I've sat behind the wheel of a few of them, and they're incredibly comfortable as well. If you'd like to test drive one, you don't have to go to the lot at Airline and PQ. I tell you that a couple times a week. It's so convenient. They'll come to you. You're at work. You're at home. No matter what the case may be, one of their brand ambassadors happy to drive right up to you, get you behind the wheel, and take it for a spin. Just take advantage of that. That doesn't cost anything. And see the difference when you drive a Genesis. Then once you purchase that Genesis, you'll see the real difference. 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, 3 years of complimentary maintenance, 3 years of complimentary maintenance, and it's valet, meaning they'll come to you to get the maintenance done as well. It's all there at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Airline at PQ across from Women's Hospital. Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Got chores that need some extra muscle, but a large piece of equipment is overkill? That's what John Deere compact utility tractors were made for. Powerful enough for the work you need to do. Compact enough for how you need to do it. Find the equipment that's right for you at Sunshine Quality Solutions. Check out our current promotions and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Matthew Bruni in 25 minutes talking LSU hoops. Still got to talk about Ryan Ramczyk, who will retire and clear some room for the New Orleans Saints in the salary cap. Saints coaching searches coming up as well, so we'll do some of that in the second hour. I'm excited for this next segment. We're going to do What If Wednesday. I'm hopeful that this first time in the new year, how do I put this, that Mrs. Beck does not attempt to do significant emotional harm to many of our listeners of the...
No, she sent me a few. I don't think they're going to hurt anyone's feelings.
Okay, good. Let's make sure we don't do that. It's What If Wednesday.
Time, space, reality. It's more than a linear path. Where a single choice can branch out into infinite realities. Follow me and ponder the question. What if?
All right, first one here. What if Notre Dame wins the national championship?
Oh, man. That's just going to start a grease fire on the internet with the Brian Kelly people and the Marcus Freeman people and the Notre Dame people barking at LSU. I got to be really honest with you about this, and I think that I'm potentially in the minority here. Maybe the minority is more vocal here, and that happens quite often on the internet. I don't give a rip if Notre Dame wins the national title, and I don't believe that would suggest that Brian Kelly has no chance to win at LSU. I don't think those two are related. I think the jobs are different. I think the eras are different. I think that I just think the whole thing is different. So I'm more concerned with what Brian Kelly's actually doing at LSU as opposed to what he did at Notre Dame in 2013. That's kind of where I sit on the whole thing. So if Notre Dame wins a national title, I'll be bummed because I don't like their elitist thing. I don't like the fact that we have to cater to all the conferences, ... and Notre Dame. I think they should have to be in a conference. I don't think they should make their own schedule. I think they should play by the rules everybody else plays with. It's not 1978 anymore where they're the only ones on NBC or whatever the case may be. I think that they should play by everybody else's rules, so I don't like them for that reason. But I don't think it has anything to do with Brian Kelly at LSU. I think that's a completely false narrative, and I don't care about it at all.
Yeah, I agree with you. And like, do people not think that if Brian Kelly was still at Notre Dame, they wouldn't be in the playoffs? Like, I'm pretty sure they would because their schedule is always really easy, and they should be in this playoff every year unless they start playing tougher.
They would be in the playoff with Brian Kelly, considering what Florida State and Southern Cal put on the field.
Yeah, yes.
Like that's. I mean, they might have lost at A&M. They probably wouldn't have. They might have, and they probably would not have lost to Northern Illinois because there's no evidence that he would have lost that game. So yeah, they probably would have gotten in with him anyway.
All right, next one. What if the Cincinnati Bengals had made the playoffs?
They'd be a nightmare, but their defense stinks. And there's just too many losses with Joe and Jamar healthy for me to completely sweep under the rug. Yes, they won their last 4, I think it was, maybe last 5. And, of course, that just napalms their draft position. But they did make a change of defensive coordinator. Defense wasn't good enough outside of Hendrickson. That's true. They didn't replace Bates at safety as well as they should have. And they just weren't good enough. So there it is.
All right, next one. This one's a bit topical. What if LSU basketball goes 3-15 in conference play?
That's a disaster. To go 3-15 in year 3 of this coaching staff, when you look at what's going on at some of the other places in year 3, namely Gainesville, Florida, that's a disaster. But they're not there. If they do that, you've got a real problem. But the issue, the other piece to it is that this year's team doesn't have any bearing on next year's team. And that's the difference between this and 10 years ago. If you would look at a program that goes 2-16, 9-9, 3-15, you have no reason to believe you could possibly come out of that. But you realize that next year's team has really no bearing on what this team is. It's just what team do you assemble for the next year. It's not a program, it's team to team. So it's different. The discussion would be different than it was, but you would have to really take a hard look at that and go, what are we doing here?
All right, next one. You kind of talk about this with your top 5 LSU things that are going to happen in 2025. What if you could retire LSU numbers today?
Oh, I could do that. Dorsey would go right up. Kevin Falk would go right up. Dylan Cruz would go right up. Those for sure the top 3 that come to my mind. I can't think of another women's basketball, although Angel Reese I think is going to get there.
Yeah.
That's probably next there. I could start to rip off some other LSU players, and I could certainly think of Paul Skeens as well, and Aaron Nola as well. But I think the first 3 that come to my mind are Kevin Falk, Glenn Dorsey, and Dylan Cruz.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. Who else could even maybe Leonard Fournette? It's still early, but
I didn't say Burrow.
Yeah,
I didn't say Burrow and Daniels.
No, okay, we know Burrow and Daniels, but it's still
Daniels.
really early. I don't know if we're going to talk about people that you would do right now.
That's one of those things that happens on live radio. How many people in their car just screamed at the dashboard, Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels?
It makes sense, though, because we're talking about today. Like, I mean, I
guess those
guys
just got off the field, too. That's my bad. Hand up. Joe and Jaden, obviously. I think the Heisman just made me file those guys away and just not even... Because it's going to happen, because the Heisman Trophy is guaranteed it's going to happen, I think it slipped my mind. But I do apologize to those of you who just wrecked your vehicles because I didn't say Joe Burrow first. That one's on me. I'm going to wear that one.
All right, next one. What if you had to put together a guaranteed TGL team?
A Tuesday Night Golf League team?
Oh man.
So Will Lee is in Salesforce.
He
played
good.
college golf.
Yeah.
So he's going to be on the squad. We lost Jared Wilson. He's a pretty good player. I'm going to play because I'd like to play on the team. Sounds fun. Beck, are you going to volunteer your services?
No way. There's got to be at least one more person that's better than me. I'm not.
Gordy,
I'm pretty
Gordy
bad.
can play a little bit, so we'll take Gordy. TJ's okay. Here's what I'd like to do. Can we take Flynn Foster, the owner's son, who is Scratch. He doesn't work here, but he's got some interest.
I don't think so. I don't think we can do that.
They
gotta be employed here.
If the Jets ownership group's son can play Xbox and make fantasy moves, I should be able to take take Flynn's kids and play on the team.
That is a fair point.
I do think we're going to struggle to beat like Shane Lowry and Wyndham Clark with that squad.
Let's think about. Well, I guess we don't really know, but I mean, I would say that we're going to be in like a league with other companies in Baton Rouge or something. We'd probably be pretty good in that.
Matt can't play because Matt has made the decision to play from the wrong side of the golf ball. He's left-handed and plays right-handed, which is poor decision by him. So he's out for sure. T-Bob, he's out. Hester, I think, played Torrey Pines one time, but he's out. So we're getting low on numbers. Beck, you might have to be called in.
Okay, I guess if I have to.
What can we use you for? What's the strength of your game?
I'm not a bad putter.
That's great.
Decent in inside 100 yards, I guess.
Okay.
So I think I can go there.
Those are the scoring clubs. Beck.
Yeah,
that's what we need.
That's what we need. All right, next one. What if the Saints draft Jalen Milroe?
Oh God. Moscona's gonna look. Ask it. He may faint on the air. If we're at like Don Juan when they do that, he might go into like cardiac arrest. But there are some tantalizing tools, but I just can't get on board with it. It's too many turnovers, too many misfires. But dude, he can run like crazy. And I'm watching Lamar run around. I'm watching Jaden run around, and I watch Kyler run around a little bit, and I watch Josh Allen run around, and there's some tantalizing stuff there, but I can't endorse it. Maybe it's just because I watched him play LSU for 2 years and go nuts.
All right, we got some for my wife here. They're not gonna hurt anyone's feelings.
All right, good. Rapid fire.
First one: what if Joe Burrow was a professional athlete in a different sport? What sport and position would he play?
He was a bucket in high school basketball. And I don't think he plays golf, so
I think it'd be basketball.
I think it's got to be
decent size. Maybe he could be like a shooting guard.
Had some thing in fall camp where they were playing horse, and he was stroking jump shots there too. So it's got to be hoops.
All right, and then what if Zion Williamson had never gotten hurt and played every game?
That is truly a what if there. That is some kind of what if. The Pelicans would have won more games. They probably would have won.
Would have made the playoffs a few times.
They would have made the playoffs quite a few times. They would have been out of the play-in a couple times too. Unfortunately,
a couple of all-star teams.
That hasn't happened since he blew that shoe out in Cameron. It just hadn't gone great. But up until then, he was a freight train. So that's not bad.
Not bad. Yeah, that's it.
All right, that's it for What If Wednesday. Appreciate Mrs. Beck for keeping the dreams of our youth alive. And for contributing some in the segment to What If Wednesday. We'll come back and close out hour number 1 coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com is the website. The spring's coming. I know a lot of y'all. I just saw T-Bob in the hall, and I know for a fact that he loves to sit at their outdoor area while the kiddos play and listen to some LSU baseball. I know that a lot of folks get into the pool come springtime or want to spend some time out in the backyard when the weather's nice. If you'd like to have a television mounted outside, if you'd like to have some awesome audio systems put in outdoors so that you don't have to stream off your phone or carry the Bluetooth speaker out there, just get Audio Video Security Solutions to come out and hook you up with some outdoor audio equipment. They do the installation. They provide all of the equipment, and the customer service after the installation is fantastic. Mitchell Fisher and his team are awesome here in Baton Rouge. They have done a lot of work for us at the Palmer House, and one of the things I love to do is give you Mitchell Fisher's cell phone number. It's not some sort of call center, not going to go to a recording, so they may get back to you on a voice. This is Mitchell Fisher's cell. He's the owner of the company. 225-439-7920. 225-439-7920. I always invite you to check them out online at avssla.com. That's Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
BRAC teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. BRAC, your #1 park system in the nation.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
All right, wrapping up hour number 1 here. Y'all know my thoughts on Live Golf. I despise Live Golf. I'm disappointed in all the people that took all the cash to break golf in two. I despise Greg Norman and all that he stands for. And I do not like the current state of professional golf. Y'all are well aware of that. And you don't really care that much, but it is a sports show, so we bring it up. Golf tried something new last night on ESPN. The TGL, the Tuesday Night Golf League. Rory McIlroy, Tiger Woods kind of put this together. It's on a simulator. It's a team game. It moves quickly. I only watched during halftime of LSU's atrocious performance in Columbia, but Beck, you took a look at the TGL. Is there a future for the TGL?
Oh my gosh. So I for some reason I was putting the TV on and I want to put in the LSU game and it said it didn't start till 8:15. I don't know why.
It was like 8:10.
Okay, so this TGL thing started at 8. So I was like, I'll watch the beginning of this. I'll watch like the first 20 minutes and I'll flip over to LSU. And so I'm watching it as the broadcast is starting, and they pan into this, crowd where there's like these people sitting in stands cheering and all this, and then they have this announcer that's announcing the names of the golfers and their accolades before they walk in, like it's a wrestling contest.
Okay.
And it's just like, immediately my thought is, man, this is really cheesy. Like these guys are golfers. Like they're not wrestlers. They're not going to be running out from the tunnel with
into the ropes.
Yeah, they're not. This is just really hokey and cheesy. And okay, but after they start actually playing golf, it was pretty cool. I like the best part to me is that they can play on these courses that aren't real, and they can design holes like really, really, really crazily
with water all over the place.
Yeah, and there's like 4 different fairways you can hit to, like in the middle or the outside, and so that's pretty cool. But I don't know, man. It doesn't seem like it's going to be anything that's going to really just boost the popularity of golf in like the younger demographic.
I would tend to agree. It seemed a little bit forced to me. Like I watched a little bit of it. I wasn't compelled to watch a ton more. I like golf simulators to hit in myself. Do I need to watch Shane Lowry and Wyndham Clark hit into a simulator and then get up on the green and putt and hammer and double the bet and play match play? I don't know. I I'm struggling with the fact that for 75 years we just played sports, and now we have to change all the rules in all the sports. I know they changed to a 3-point line at some point. I know they lowered the mound at some point for Bob Gibson. I know they've always tinkered with the rules. So that's not new, but like these massively new concepts that we're coming up with just because young people are addicted to phones and iPads and don't watch sports at the rate they used to. I think a lot of it is just so forced to me. And the fact that we always just have to kowtow to all this all the time, it just doesn't have me. And they're not trying to get me. College football's got me. The major leagues have got me. And golf I'm going to watch golf. I don't need to watch the TGL, and I certainly don't need to watch live golf. Like we have to do so much different than just go play the sport. And I struggle with that sometimes as someone who doesn't need all the bells and whistles. I guess I need someone that needs all the bells and whistles to describe that to me.
Yeah, I can see, I will say this. I really enjoyed the fact that there was a 40-second shot clock.
Yeah, you got to get up there and hit it.
You got to get up there and hit it. The reading putts, the putting was a little hokey in and of itself with the green. Like, it was pretty cool, the technology that they had, but at the end of the day, I don't see that. I don't think 20-year-olds are going to start watching the TGL.
Got to be in on the TGL. I'm a big Bay Town golf fan. The Bay, that's San Francisco.
Yeah, that's who got they won the first match, Hunt.
The New York team got beat. They don't have anybody from New York. It's not great. All right, we'll step aside for Sports Center. We got a ton to do in hour number 2. Ryan Ramczyk's retiring. Saints are interviewing people. Ben Johnson's got set up. Is it with New Orleans? We'll see. Matthew Bruni talking hoops when we come back from Sports Center.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Got chores that need some extra muscle, but a large piece of equipment is overkill? That's what John Deere compact utility tractors were made for. Powerful enough for the work you need to do. Compact enough for how you need to do it. Find the equipment that's right for you at Sunshine Quality Solutions. Check out our current promotions and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
At Bayou Automotive, we believe in a sales process that puts you first. We want you to experience an easy purchase with clear pricing and great service. Let Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram be your trusted partners in finding your perfect vehicle. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. The NFL is monitoring the devastating wildfires across several areas of Los Angeles and the potential impact on Monday night's NFC wildcard game between the Vikings and Rams in LA. The Chargers, who visit the Texans in Saturday's AFC wildcard game, did alter their practice schedule today to limit players' time outdoors. Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts taking part in the first practice of the week. Level of participation not yet known. He does need to clear concussion protocol to play in Sunday's NFC wildcard game versus the Packers. If he plays, Philly likely tweaks its offensive game plan, says ESPN's Dominique Foxworth.
You take certain things out of the playbook. You're a little bit more hesitant. And it's particularly interesting for this team because they are very much predicated on his running ability and the tush push ability, which is like you put your head in that, in like that fourth down in the red zone. Those are key places for this team to have success, and they are all dependent on Jalen Hurts' athleticism.
NBA Orlando's Paolo Banchero expected to return from a torn oblique tomorrow or Friday.
Hey, it's your resident Super Bowl champ, Chris Candy. Coming up Thursday, I'll tell you why Steelers-Ravens is a loser-leave-town game for the head coach. It's unsportsmanlike weekday mornings at 6, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour 2, Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Half the work week is now in the rearview mirror. Half the first work week of 2025. Appreciate you spending it with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge, officially working towards the weekend. A lot of football to get to in this hour. We're talking about Ryan Ramczyk retiring and then some potential candidates for the New Orleans Saints coming up here at 2:15. And then we'll talk Will Campbell in the latest mock draft at 2:30. But we got to talk some hoops here at the top of the hour as we do each week with Matthew Bruni, part of the Bengal Tiger team over there on 3. Matthew, how we doing?
Hey, Hunt, doing well. Just trying to stay warm.
Yeah, well, it was cold in Columbia last night in more ways than one. LSU kind of run off the floor by Missouri, if we're being honest, last night. Did that surprise you?
It did. I was hoping that we would see the resilience that we saw, from this team in the games against, Florida State, UCF, and even Kansas State. But those games seem like a distant memory at this point. And unfortunately, this is now 3 straight losses against P4 teams here, if you include the SMU games. So SMU, Vanderbilt, Missouri, obviously the last 2 being conference games. Missouri just got to the free throw line. They hit threes offensively. They were in complete control of this one, and LSU does not have the offense to match or even get close to, scoring in the 80-point range.
What do you now take from Kansas State, Florida State, UCF? I mean, they handled themselves pretty well in those games. I realized Jalen Reed was around, but what do you now assess as this situation?
I think the SEC is just legitimately just better than anything that they've seen to this point. Pitt is the only team that I think is even in the conversation. The Pitt's the only top 50 team that they played in the non-conference. SMU's around that range, so if you want to include them too, but you can. But they lost those 2 games, and the SEC is filled with top 50 teams. I tweeted it last night. Last year, the SEC had, I believe it was 6 or 7. I don't have the tweet right off the top of my head, but this year they're at 13. So it's just a completely different conference. LSU this year, I would argue, is honestly just as good as it was last year. Maybe it's a smidge worse, but last year's team went 9-9 in conference. This year's team, I think at this point, will be lucky to win 4 or 5 games in conference. So it's just a drastic difference in the level of competition that LSU is facing, and they're not built for this without Jalen Reed or Tyrell Ward.
The first half against Vanderbilt and the first half against Missouri, when I'm watching, LSU just seems incapable of getting into the front court and creating anything. It's just a bunch of scattered turnovers and forced plays with threes. It's just, what do you see when you watch them get into the front court in these first halves over the last 4 days?
Yeah, I think they lacked initiators. I think Jordan Sears is not a true point guard, which we've kind of known, but you've been kind of able to get away with it at times because he is a pretty good scorer. And then, Cam Carter's not a true initiator as well, not an elite passer. Victorious Miller's a freshman. And so that's where I went into the year. If you remember, I went into the year saying Jalen Reed was going to have to be a focal point of this team in the post and kind of just play through him one night. They didn't do it as much as I wanted them to do it early in the year, but now without him, they don't even have that option. They just don't have enough initiators on the court. Teams are starting to really pressure Jordan Sears and Cam Carter and Curtis Givens and make them uncomfortable, and Victorious Miller. And since they don't have any front court creation with Collins or Chess that can do things on their own, it's just they don't have enough playmakers on the court here. So it's a mess really from top to bottom. They don't have enough shooters for the spacing, and honestly, there's just not a ton of answers, I don't think, on this team right now.
Now, there were no answers for this program last year in blowout losses to Syracuse and Texas and Kansas State and an early loss to Nichols, and all of a sudden they turned it around and they played better and won 9 league games. And for that reason, we kind of lauded Matt McMahon in the non-conference of this year, saying they weren't as talented last year and they found a way. Is there any hope that this team can improve and pick off some wins?
There's a chance they can improve. The problem becomes that their schedule is only going to get more challenging.
Yep.
It is just absurdly difficult, and I don't think you can talk about it enough, that the fact that they're just going to be playing so many tough games, even relatively easy games, like Arkansas on the 14th of this month at home. That's, if you look at projections, it's 1 point spread or something like that. But Arkansas is still a top 40 team and still has a win over Michigan on their resume, has all these talented players like DJ Wagner and Boogie Fland, and just the talent level that of teams they're going to be playing is going to be superior to them in every single game from here on out, besides maybe South Carolina. And so you look at it and say, I think this team could get better. I think they're definitely capable of muscling out a few wins like we saw in the non-conference and staying competitive, but just from a talent perspective, they're just not really close at this point to what the rest of the conference has.
Curtis Givens and Victorious Miller have had their moments. I thought Givens came on against those bad teams in December, and I thought showed some flashes last night in a blowout. Victorious Miller showed some flashes in December as well and has kind of looked overmatched in 2 conference games. But what do you think the possibility for growth for those 2 guys is?
Yeah, I liked Curtis Givens. Clearly, they're both talented players. Both of them were top 60 players out of high school. I like Givens' size at 6'3", 6'4", and really strong. And then Victorious Miller, we like you said, we saw him in the non-conference, score the ball, shoot the ball at a high level. Like I said, conference teams are just going to start to really pressure Jordan Sears and Victorious Miller in these guards because they're not great initiators, not great creators. So with that being the case, I do think he's been overmatched. I mean, he's I think it was 0 points and 4 points in his first 2 games. Yeah. So really troublesome there. Rob Miller, the other freshman, I think has also just been overmatched at this point. He came in and I thought he was not going to play a ton. because he was kind of raw out of high school, very talented, but very raw. So it's kind of the fact that they're having to play those three or even consider playing those three kind of speaks to the situation they're in.
I mean, how surprising is it that Tyrell Ward, well, I don't even want to talk about Ward, but Mike Williams can't get off the bench. It took 6 fouls between 2 guards to get him off the bench last year, and he was a decent freshman player for LSU last year. I know that the early performances weren't great, but still a little bit surprising based on what you would have thought maybe in like July of this year that Mike Williams is buried that far on the bench.
100%. I think it's honestly one of the bigger storylines besides Jalen Reed and Tyrell Ward being out. It's like if you would have told me before the year this team doesn't have Jalen Reed, Tyrell Ward, or Mike Williams, I just wouldn't have assumed that this team would have done anything. Because I thought going into the year, I went and watched practices before the season. I thought Mike looked fine. I thought Tyrell looked fine. Jalen's really good. I thought those were 3 of their potentially top 6 players. And for Mike to start the year the way he did, where he was, I think it was like 2 of 18 from 3 or something, and just really was loose with the ball, was turning it over a lot, and then Victorious Miller stepped up and kind of took his spot, which is fine. Competition's good. Victorious Miller is very good, but the fact that he hasn't been what he was last year and the fact they kind of just cut him out of the rotation really quickly was definitely something I did not see coming. So again, you look at where this team was 3-4 months ago. In my head, it was Tyrell Ward starting, Jalen Reed starting, Mike Williams potentially starting. Like, I wouldn't have been mad at that. And now it's, you're left with, this kind of makeshift situation here where you're playing a lot of young guys and trying to piece it together.
Let's talk about the girls briefly. Still undefeated, but I'm not sure how good they are because they haven't played a great schedule or gotten into the grind. That's coming here pretty quickly. Your assessment of just kind of where this team is at this point, 17-0.
Yeah, I think there's fair criticism of, they barely beat Washington and they barely beat Stanford. And so and then they've had slow starts. They've been unable to kind of put away teams early, like a UIC or like an Albany at times. But through 2 conference games, I honestly think that they've been really good. Arkansas, they took care of business there. Auburn, even though it was a 10-point game, they were up 25 with 5 minutes left before Auburn went on a run to close it. So I think they're hitting their stride a bit. This Tennessee game is going to be very unique, very different. I'm not sure there's many teams in the country that play like Tennessee plays. Tennessee has the highest 3-point attempt rate in the country. They press, they rotate a lot. So it's going to be very unique to see. I don't even know what I expect from that game, but if they're able to win that one, I do think it sends another statement that this is one of the 5 best teams in the country, even though they continue to slip in the AP poll because they've had a couple inconsistent games.
Football transfer portal is rolling. Football recruiting never stops. They've got all that covered at On 3, and Matthew Bruni's all over that football and basketball beat as well. Go check out the Bengal Tiger, part of the On 3 network. Matthew's with us every Wednesday at the top of hour number 2. Thanks for the time, man.
Yeah, thanks. Anytime.
Matthew Bruni, always with us on Wednesdays. If you're looking for basketball, which, I don't know exactly who I'm talking to there because I know how this goes, but we do have basketball available to you via the Hoops with Hunt podcast stream. Wherever you find your sound, if you want basketball content, go to Hoops with Hunt, and it's all right there. I don't know how much we're going to be able to drive you there over the next couple of months, but I'll remind you, for anyone who's looking for some basketball content, check it out over to Hoops with Hunt. I know that a lot of you do care who the New Orleans Saints hire as their head coach, and they got some salary cap relief today as one of the all-time greats is going to move on. So we'll talk about that New Orleans Saints news of the day coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every car on the lot at Genesis of Baton Rouge is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. Safety is a big, big deal. Big, big deal. And every single model in the Genesis line, from the entry level all the way to the highest end model, it's a pretty big gap. They've all got the same safety features. They don't look at the highest end, say we'll put and then they go, we're not going to do anything on the bottom end. No, that's not how it works. Safety is vitally important, and it's very important to the folks over at Genesis. So if safety is something you're considering, every single model was given the IIHA top safety picks. Some of them were given the top safety picks plus. If you think Genesis, think luxury. Driving around town, see a car, and what is it? Genesis. Go check them out. If you're buying a car in Baton Rouge, the odds are you're going to be on Airline Highway. You might as well go check out Genesis of Baton Rouge right there at Pico. It's just across from Women's Hospital, and you'll love your time at Genesis of Baton Rouge. And if you make that purchase, 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty with every new vehicle purchase at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Start that process online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
At Ochsner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Ochsner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Ochsner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Hope your Wednesday's going awesome. Thanks for hanging out with us on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Thanks to Matthew Bruni for making a little bit of time. We'll put basketball in the rearview mirror for the day, I think, thankfully. LSU back at it on Saturday against Ole Miss in Oxford. Let's transition over to football. Names continue to surface for New Orleans Saints potential interviews and head coaches. Some of them are being reported, then they're refuted, but we're getting a reasonable list of some of the guys that are on this list to this point. There is a report from Jonathan Jones of NFL on CBS. The Saints have scheduled an interview with Miami Dolphins defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver for today, Wednesday. We know that New York Giants offensive coordinator and assistant head coach Mike Kafka is scheduled to interview on Friday. Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator of the Lions, expected sometime between Thursday and Saturday, as the Lions will have a bye this week, so they've got a little bit of time on their hands. And I'm not going to necessarily dive deep into all of these candidates and their entire backgrounds. We can do that as we feel like it gets narrowed down. There there are absolutely 10 names that have surfaced as possibilities for the Saints at this point. So for me to sit here and go through the background of 20 years of 10 guys and go through 200 years of coaching is not necessarily a necessity at this point. But I'm interested at some of these names and kind of the background the Saints are looking for. Because if you look at Anthony Weaver, that's a guy who feels like as a defensive-minded coach is a culture builder. That's kind of his reputation in the NFL. Relates very well to players, kind of runs a CEO-type deal. The Lions are not built on their defense at this point. That's an offensive football team at this point. But he's a guy that's thought of as a culture builder. Mike Kafka is a guy who his background is really based in Andy Reid. That's a guy who Andy Reid pegged out of college as a guy he wanted to play for him. He did play for him in Philadelphia. Then he stopped playing football, went and was a grad assistant at Northwestern, and then joined Andy Reid's staff for a little bit at Kansas City, where he's working with Reid and Mahomes. And so the intrigue is that he spent some time under one of the greatest coaches of this generation. You look at Aaron Glenn, that's a guy with ties to the Saints. That's a guy who is a defensive-minded coach, but also a guy that is thought of as a really great communicator with players. And I started to look at some of the backgrounds of some of the best coaches in the NFL currently. And there's a good mix between guys who you think of as just kind of CEOs. I'm here to run it. It's not necessarily my scheme that we're running. I'm going to bring in coordinators to that, but I'm going to run this organization. I'm going to communicate. I've got connections throughout the league. I'm going to make sure our staff is good. I'm going to make sure our scouting department is good. I'm going to make sure that everything is running the way that it should. And I'll lead the team on Sundays while the coaches on the side, either side of the ball handle the coaching. Guys like Dan Campbell, who's a tight ends coach. He's a culture guy. John Harbaugh was a special teams coach. He's a culture guy. Been incredible in the league. Mike Tomlin was a defensive coordinator for one season in the NFL. That's a guy who's built an incredible culture, and they've used different offensive coordinators. Now, a lot of it was with Ben Roethlisberger, but a lot of different offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators have come and gone, but he's kind of held it together. That's the culture guys in the NFL. That's a little bit harder to find, but really good when it works. A little bit harder to find than the scheme guys. You look at Kyle Shanahan. That's a scheme guy. You know, as long as he's the head coach, you're going to cycle through quarterback coaches and offensive coordinators, but he's going to be the guy that's putting in the offense, and he'll just kind of keep plugging it along, and you got to make sure that the guys up top with John Lynch and company are restocking the shelves, but he's going to run that scheme. Sean McVay is the same way in Los Angeles. That's a scheme guy on offense. Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, who's had a great year this year, that's a scheme guy on offense. Andy Reid is a scheme guy. That's his offense. It was his offense in Philly. It's his offense in Cincinnati. Matt LaFleur is the same way. Sean Payton's the same way. Bill Belichick was the same way on the defensive side of the ball. That can also happen. Rex Ryan was a defense guy when he was having success with the Jets. There are two different ways to kind of look at this. And as I was evaluating these candidates, and I'm not ready, as I just said, to like completely go all in on going through the entire background of every single coach that gets mentioned. But I am, I think, in a position, and I say that because I don't think the Saints are going to hire a coach for 2 weeks. So as I say that, I want to kind of get a picture of what are the characteristics. And I know that if you've listened to some of the shows here, like Matt on AFR, will tell you, I want a young offensive guy. You had the old defensive guy, give me the young offensive guy. You know who's a young offensive guy? Sean Payton. Like that's kind of what he's looking at. And I went through that list there, and Kyle Shanahan was a young offensive guy, and Sean McVay was a young offensive guy. So was Kevin O'Connell and Matt LaFleur. They were all young offensive guys. But there are defensive guys as well. And I think that Aaron Glenn would fit that mold. But I'm looking at what characteristics am I looking at? And I keep going back to the fact that I think the scheme is the most important thing to me. It's a constant. I realize there are two different worlds, but you knew what Nick Saban's defense was going to do. You know what Kirby Smart's defense is going to do. You knew what Steve Spurrier's offense was going to do. You knew what Urban Meyer's offense was going to do. And that's college football's a different world. But we talk about both here, and I rattled through a lot of the offensive guys on this list too. And I think if you can always have that scheme and then you can find that quarterback, I think that's where it pops. And I think it's the easiest way to the top. Look, myself very, very much included, I made fun of the Dan Campbell hire because of the press conference. I will hold my hand up on that till the day I put up the microphone because that was a ridiculous press conference. But his guys bought into it, and more importantly than the players buying in, which they have to buy in. You lose the locker room, you're toast. But you can have a lot of player buy-in. If your scheme stinks, you're toast. He went and got Ben Johnson, and Aaron Glenn's done a really good job too. And that's the key. And I don't know, because Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn are going to take head coaching jobs, I feel pretty confident, this year. So what does Dan Campbell do then? Is it as good? I don't know, because I don't have a constant. I would give him a good chance. He's been in the league a long time. He's now built a culture that attracts young coaches, and maybe you give him a pretty good opportunity to go get the next great pair of coordinators. It could happen. Nick Saban hired a ton of good offensive coordinators, and that wasn't really his side of the ball. Different sport, I know. Different league. But as I look at this with the Saints, I'm starting to think that I want the guy with the scheme. Like, I don't need Darren Rizzi, sorry. Did a great job infusing some life into that locker room for 2 weeks. And there's absolutely value in that. But it makes me nervous. And in this market, even if you're just a Saints fan who's not tied directly to LSU and you're listening to this or you're checking us out on YouTube and you don't care about LSU, but LSU hired Ed Ogeron. That's a culture guy. And man, did he go restock the shelves? And man, did he keep Dave Aranda? And did he get Joe Brady? And they made it. I mean, it was beautiful. And then Steve Ensminger quit, and Joe Brady left, and Dave Aranda took a head coaching job, and it cratered. It doesn't matter why. It just matters that it did. And as I look at the Saints, I want that scheme to be attached to it. So you got to give me a guy with a lot of experience as a defensive coordinator who's going to bring that in. That was Dennis Allen. Didn't work. Or give me a guy on the offensive side of the ball. There seem to be more of those in the mix here. And I mentioned yesterday that Todd Monken would be my pick as a guy who's actually been a head coach and had the scheme. But I feel like as I look around the league, you look at the most successful coaches, I think more often than not, they come with a scheme background. And that's where I would go if I were the New Orleans Saints. There's more Saints news today that we want to get to, and it's disappointing news for sure, certainly not unexpected news. The news that Ryan Ramczyk's retirement papers will be filed with the NFL, and his playing career will come to an end. That's not surprising news. We kind of felt that way as you looked at this situation last spring. You got the sense from talking to folks that cover the team day to day that Ryan Ramczyk's career was probably done. You found out in training camp that he was not going to be a part of this Saints team. And so I think the most important thing we do here is just talk about the incredible career that Ryan Ramczyk enjoyed in New Orleans. We have talked a ton about how vital the draft is going to be for the New Orleans Saints in the next couple of years. You have got to hit on guys in the draft early and often. And the Saints took Ryan Ramczyk in the 2017 draft out of Wisconsin. And this dude was one of the premier right tackles in the game of football for a handful of years. He was a first-team All-Pro in 2019. He was a second-team All-Pro in 18 and 20. He and Lane Johnson were kind of the top two guys in the sport. And unfortunately, at a position where you do see guys excel in their early 30s, which you don't see a ton of that at running back. Sometimes you kind of run out of steam at corner at that age. But tackles and guards can play, and centers can play into their early 30s, and Ryan Ramczyk's only 30 years old, and his career appears to be done due to those knee injuries, but a really, really great Saint and a huge hit in the draft for New Orleans. These are the kind of guys they have got to find a way to land and get younger and cheaper. And as I mentioned, younger and cheaper, Ryan Ramczyk moves on, so does his money. There is still going to be a cap hit here, but Ramczyk is going to reduce his 2024 base salary from $18 million to the league minimum, which is $1.255 million, and that creates about $16.7 million in cap space for the Saints in 2025. You've still got a long way to go. You've still got $50+ million that you've got to move around for New Orleans and whoever this new head coach is going to be. But the fact is that you're moving in the right direction there because of Ramczyk. Would the new coach rather have a second-team All-Pro right tackle making a good chunk of change? Yeah, at 30 years old, probably would prefer that as opposed to him moving on. But Ryan Ramczyk not going to be able to play, so he will free up a little bit of room. There are going to be some more moves that are made to chip away at the deficit. This is very, very much commonplace for New Orleans. It's complicated, and it's not something I'm going to proclaim to be completely proficient in, but I do understand that they get through these gymnastics each and every year. And I will say this, nothing that they did outside of Kamara, which I disagreed with at the time and still do today, nothing that they did outside of Kamara in last offseason has significantly hampered them moving forward, and now you clean up a little bit more room with Ramczyk moving on. Derek Carr is still the biggest piece here, and that's either going to be a huge chunk of your salary cap in 2025 because he's on the team or because it's dead money, but that's a huge domino that's going to fall here eventually. But Ramczyk's finally did fall today, according to reports. They'll clear that $16.7 million. 50 more to clean up. They'll do some restructuring, but I'm hopeful that this is all part of a new leaf that they're turning over as far as the money goes. And every indication outside of Kamara has been that that's the case. So very, very disappointed that Ryan Ramczyk has moved on, but it's just part of football. There's just nothing you can do about those chronic injuries, and he tried to gut it out in the 2023 season and tried to play through it the best he could, but there was a lot of pain. He just wasn't the player that we had grown accustomed to seeing in New Orleans. So a great Saint, a great draft pick, a symbol of what they need more of moving forward, and then a little relief on the salary cap side of things as you move into 2025 and look for a new team. He'll go into retirement as one of the better draft picks of the last decade for New Orleans. Didn't get as much out of him as maybe you hoped, but great player for the Saints. All right, that's our Saints update for the day. If you're looking for Saints content, you can certainly find it. Appreciate y'all for seeking this out over at YouTube. Hunt on Saints, certainly on the podcast networks. Hunt on Saints as well. We're talking Saints every single day as far as they carry this searching coach on. So if you're looking for the latest updates, you can certainly find it at Hunt on Saints wherever you find your sound, or on LouisianaSports.net. If you look at LouisianaSports.net right now and you go up to the top and click on teams, you can look at our Saints football tab, and Ross has just been churning out every single name that comes out, from Anthony Weaver to Mike Kafka to Davis Webb from the Broncos, who is apparently in the mix. Mike Vrabel's name has come up. Darren Rizzi looking at the Jets. Like, there's a ton of information there at LouisianaSports.net if you're looking to stay up to date on all that. So bookmark that page if you're a big Who Dat fan, and check out Ross's work each and every day. Let's step aside. When we come back, mock draft. What's next for Will Campbell? It's next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Just go to the website, OneBathAndClosets.com. David and his team have done a great job over the last 8 months of uploading new pictures of some of their great work. Just take a look at it. It's beautiful. It's incredibly functional. And the best part is that it's customized. So you create the specs for what David creates at your home. You don't have to move to greatly improve your living situation. Whether it's closets, you don't have enough room, you're cramming stuff in with coat hangers, you got suitcases here and there, you don't have enough room for all your shoes. If that's the case, they can build you a new closet. If you don't ever use that tub, want to take it out and put in a gorgeous walk-in shower, floors, toilets, the whole deal, they can handle it. It'll be one call that you make, and I can promise you this. They will not be coming back 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks later to fix all the issues that may not have been completely resolved the first time. They do it right the first time and leave the competition behind. It's David Duvall and One Bath and Closets. Get that free consultation today by going to OneBathAndClosets.com, OneBathAndClosets.com.
There it is, the extra mile. on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Got chores that need some extra muscle, but a large piece of equipment is overkill? That's what John Deere compact utility tractors were made for. Powerful enough for the work you need to do. Compact enough for how you need to do it. Find the equipment that's right for you at Sunshine Quality Solutions. Check out our current promotions and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Auctioner Andrews Institute.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
All right, it is officially mock draft season. We've got a lot of the picks already set up in the NFL draft. Certainly the playoff teams have to shake themselves out, but we know that the Tennessee Titans will pick first. Cleveland's there at second. The Giants will pick at third, and so on. The Patriots actually moved themselves back to the 4th selection. But I was looking through the latest mock draft up at ESPN from Jordan Reed, who's, of course, their draft analyst. And I was curious where Will Campbell would end up. And you've seen a lot of variation with Will Campbell from into the top 5 all the way towards the back end of the first round. And I think it has a lot to do with the projection on position and where Will Campbell projects to play. I didn't see entering the season with some mock drafts that were obviously way too early before the college season started, any projection that had Will Campbell at guard. And you're now starting to see that a little bit more. I would suggest that, obviously if you're a true franchise left tackle, that's the best thing for your draft stock. But the versatility of it is not necessarily a huge negative. And I think Will Campbell could play guard, but I do think that the teams are going to give him a chance to play out at tackle. And so in this mock draft, Will Campbell is mocked to the Chicago Bears at number 10. I think that makes a lot of sense. The Bears' offensive line was atrocious this year. Caleb Williams was battered and bruised. He was bordering on David Carr's all-time sack record by the end of the season, and they've got to get that cleaned up. Because, I mean, when you go into this year looking at the Bears, you're looking at a team saying, oh, they got Keenan Allen. Okay, that's pretty good. They drafted one of the best receivers in the draft in Rome Odunze and got DJ Moore. And, okay, Caleb Williams comes in. They got a lot of toys. Like, they ought to be pretty good offensively. Well, they weren't good offensively. They were terrible offensively because they couldn't block anybody. So Will Campbell makes a ton of sense there to Chicago at 10. And it got me thinking, like, 10 is really early in the draft, and LSU has put defensive backs that early, has put running backs like Leonard Fournette that early. Guys like on the defensive line have obviously gone that high with Tyson Jackson and Glenn Dorsey and some of those guys. Kiki Mingo was an early pick. You've had Burrow and Daniels and Jamarcus at quarterback. You've put wide receivers all over the place in the first round of the draft, but offensive line has been a tough sled for LSU in the draft. I mean, you're looking at pure tackles from LSU and where they've gone in the draft. You're looking at Austin Deculus in the 6th round. You're looking at Gerald Hawkins in the 4th round. You're looking at Sadiq Charles went in the 4th round. Joe Barksdale was a 3rd-round pick. Even go back to Andrew Whitworth, he was a 2nd-round pick coming out of LSU. Will Campbell is set to be the highest drafted LSU offensive tackle in decades, going back to long way. And the question is he the best offensive tackle in LSU history? And again, I hear a lot on Twitter. I hear a lot on message boards. And I know how disappointed a lot of LSU fans were in the offensive line's run blocking this year. And that's a huge part of playing on the offensive front. And Will Campbell is not immune from some of that blame. He did not have a great year in run blocking. But you're talking about an elite pass blocker. And that is the case with every scout who takes a look and writes a feature on Will Campbell. The breakdown here in this from Jordan Reed says he's a consistent technician, a 6'6", 323-pound, polished blocker who can step in as a day one starter at either tackle or guard and help protect Caleb Williams. Will Campbell basically gave up like 4 sacks in 3 years. If I would have told you when he signed as a 5-star recruit out of Neville in an early enrollee that he was going to give up 4 sacks in 3 years, you would have gone, holy crap, give me that guy. And now that I sit here and look at the mock draft and try to debate whether or not he's the best tackle in school history, I bet a lot of you that would have taken him with 4 sacks in 3 years on signing day and going, that's incredible, are now going to look at it and go, underrated, overrated, didn't perform. That's what I see on Twitter. And I'm like, really? Is that really how you feel? Because the statistics are pretty jarring, and the pros still like him. He's mocked in the top 10. Now, I'm not trying to sit here today and take 21-year-old Will Campbell and directly compare him with Andrew Whitworth, Hall of Famer. Like, that's not a fair comp for someone who hasn't played a snap in the NFL. But if we're just talking about career at LSU and then what that merited in the draft, which doesn't tell the whole story, we know that. Glenn Dorsey was a better college player than he was a pro. But I think you could make the case based on accolades, based on his draft position, and the fact that he was the starting left tackle the second he stepped on campus, not a redshirt guy like Faneca, not a redshirt guy like Mawai, that he's the best offensive tackle in school history. He might not be. I'm not telling you that he is. But he's in the discussion, and I think that crystallizes a bit if he's the 7th or 8th pick in the draft. Different sport than it was in 1996. 1996, you got Herb Tyler running the option. It's 3 yards in a cloud of dust if you weren't in Gainesville. And now you're spreading it out, and you're running read option, and it's zone blocking on run schemes, and it's a different world. I get it, so it's hard to compare one guy in a different era. But if Will Campbell goes in the top 10 of the draft, like, that's a pretty loud statement for a multi-time All-American and a guy who helped pave the way for a Heisman Trophy winner, one of the best ever. And I think it's been important to me that I try to convey to those who are disgruntled with the fact that LSU went 8-4 and couldn't run the ball as well as they wanted to this year, that doesn't completely disparage Will Campbell's entire career because he was part of an offensive line that didn't get enough push this year. It's the fun thing to do to jump down your team's throat whenever anything's happening. We're dealing with it with basketball right now. But I think it's important for me to kind of try to put that in perspective and see if I can't maybe reshape your opinion a little bit based on what everybody else outside of our little bubble thinks. Because let's be honest, the Bears aren't going to pass on Will Campbell because LSU went 8-4. They're not going to pass on Will Campbell because LSU failed to get a push on the right side of the offensive line in the run game more often than not. Now, they may check out the tape and see that there are some run game deficiencies and that he may need to play guard instead of tackle, but he's a great player. Great ambassador for LSU. Incredibly durable. And again, I think if I told you what he was going to be when he signed on the dotted line and early enrolled from Neville, right when Brian Kelly got here, I think you all would have taken that. And he deserves to go down with some of the greatest offensive linemen in LSU history. He's got a long, long, long way to go to join guys like Faneca and Whitworth and Mawai at the pro level. At the college level, he's in that discussion. I don't think there's any doubt. If you're looking for LSU football content, you can find it on YouTube or wherever you find your podcast, Hunt on LSU. We continue to tell that each and every day because it's new. We did have Hunt on LSU on YouTube, and we've had that for a couple of years, but it's all in podcast form as well now. We've been looking at those numbers and appreciate you all so much for subscribing to the channel. If you're really interested in LSU football and you don't want to wade through the basketball talk on this show, some of you don't want to wade through the Saints talk on this show, you just want your LSU football goods. It's there in podcast form, and it's all broken out for you. Hunt on LSU. Just search it wherever you find your podcast. You can find us. Step aside one more time. We'll come back and close things out. It's a Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Neil and Melissa have been rocking and rolling for 40 years down there in Napoleonville. If you hear that and you go, Napoleonville, that's not that close to me. Well, hold your horses. Maybe it is close to you. Got a lot of folks that listen down in the 985 and down in the river parishes, down the bayou. But we also have a Boudreaux's Electrical location in the 225 in Gonzales. That number is 225-300-9389, 225-300-9389. If you want to call them at the same number they had for 40 years in Napoleonville, they'll answer you there too. It doesn't matter which number you call because they can service you anywhere in our listening area. 985-397-1562 is that number in Napoleonville. Give yourself the peace of mind to know the power is not going out at your home. It's not going out at your place of work either. Boudreaux's Electrical can install a Generac home standby generator to protect you from those power outages that are inevitable here in South Louisiana. It's a nuisance when that power goes out. I tell the story all the time trying to watch Paul Skeens pitch in the first game of the College World Series against Tennessee. My power goes out because we had a thunderstorm come through at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Don't be like Hunt. Now, I didn't have Boudreaux's Electrical then because we were going to move. We're set now. Boudreaux's Electrical, boudreauxelectrical.com.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
When it comes to choosing energy for your family and your home, make the smart choice with natural gas. You can count on efficient and affordable natural gas to keep you comfortable.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
The Hooters College Football Bowl Pick'em Challenge presented by Yingling is underway. Make sure to check the leaderboard in your inbox to see if you qualified for the final round of picks and your shot at $1,000 cash and $200 from Hooters. Our grand prize one will be notified at January 13th. It's the Hooters College Football Bowl Pick'em Challenge presented by Yingling at 1045ESPN.com. And we also have some college football playoff semifinal matchups heading your way. You can tune in for Notre Dame and Penn State. That is tomorrow night at 6:30. And then Ohio State and Texas will be Friday at 6:30. Your home for the college football playoff and national championship is 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
All right, Beck. We certainly have to play Take It or Leave It. I'm going to give you one first before we do.
Okay.
Cliff Kingsbury apparently has been requested as an interview for the New Orleans Saints. What about Cliff Kingsbury as the new Saints coach? Take it or leave it?
Leave it alone. I'll say no on that one.
Why not? Cliff!
He had Kyler Murray. And,
he did?
And they weren't very good.
No?
And
is Kyler Murray good?
They seem to be doing a little bit better in the last few years. At least this year, anyway. They did play. They almost made the playoffs.
I feel like they had that 1 year with Warner and Fitzgerald. That is just a pitiful organization. They don't.
Pretty
They're just boring. Like what do the Cardinals do?
They wasted Larry
do they have
Fitzgerald's
any fans?
prime.
Does anybody care about the Cardinals? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, they're kind of like the Lions, except the Lions actually got good the last few years. Like
The Lions have been bad.
They both had generational wide receivers and pretty much wasted their entire careers there. And the Cardinals, I don't know. I mean, I think Kyler Murray can be a playoff caliber quarterback, but it seems like they
should have played second base, Beck. That's what it comes down to.
Maybe.
Really should.
I think he's going to be making
franchise
a lot
quarterback.
more money.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I think so.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
Just take it.
All right, there was some rumors going around about Bill Belichick and a parent interest possibly in actually returning to the NFL after just taking the job at North Carolina. There were some rumors saying that he was talking to Tom Brady, who is now a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, who, of course, just fired their head coach, Antonio Pierce. Belichick, there are sources coming out saying that this was not accurate. He was simply just talking to Tom Brady. But Belichick doing North Carolina like he did the Jets. Take it or leave it.
I'm going to leave it. He's got a buy-in in his contract. Says he only has to pay $1 million if he leaves immediately. And I just don't think it's going to go to the Raiders where they don't have a quarterback. So why would you go there?
Doesn't make any sense. All right, next one, staying in the NFL, the 49ers are set to rehire Robert Saleh as their defensive coordinator, bringing Saleh back. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. I think he did a good job there. It obviously garnered him the Jets job. It's an offensive organization, as we talked about. They got to play a little better defense. Personnel's generally been pretty good. They got to stay healthier than they did last year, but there's familiarity there. That's a guy that they trust. I think it's fine.
All right, last one here in a shortened edition of Take It or Leave It. The New Orleans Pelicans are going to rest Zion Williamson after bringing him back last night in a losing effort to the Timberwolves. They are in a back-to-back hunt, which means that Zion Williamson cannot play because he is incapable of playing in back-to-back games. Take it or leave it.
Take it.
I'll take it.
Can't do it. Here's the deal with Zion. You can't trade him if he gets hurt. If he doesn't play, he's got a better chance of not getting hurt. It doesn't matter if they win or lose. In fact, I would rather they lose because you probably need to get back up to the top of the draft again. So, sit him. That's
okay, but
where it's got to be.
He has to.
He had a sick windmill dunk there last year.
He did. Nice 360 last night. Yeah, nice 360 windmill, and then they were losing. They lost that game, so it didn't really matter too much. But I think he has to play just to prove to other teams that he can still play.
Is there a better chance if he plays that he proves he can still play, or that he proves he gets hurt?
Well, that's a good question.
You got to sit him on the bench
a bit of a conundrum
and just have them think maybe he can still play, even though probably can't.
What can they realistically even get for him at this point? Can they even get a first-round pick for him?
They could get a sack of basketballs. Good. What do they use in the NBA? Spaldings?
I think it's is it Wilson? I don't know actually. That's pretty bad. I feel like it's either Spalding or Wilson. It's probably Spalding. Who cares?
They could probably get a bag of both.
Do you really think they couldn't get a first-round pick for him?
They could get a first-round pick.
They can get a first for him.
Nobody cares about their first-round picks.
Not really.
They'll protect him if they need to.
Yeah.
That's it. We got a lot of basketball talk, a lot of Saints talk, some LSU football talk with Will Campbell. If you missed any of it, catch it on demand wherever you find your sound, or, of course, on YouTube. That's going to do it for us on this Wednesday. Matt will drive you home on After Further Review with all the latest on the Saints coaching search and probably a little bit of basketball, too. We're back tomorrow, same time, same place. The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.